are back here at the AWS Sydney Summit, day number 2. It's been an awesome day so far. Some great guests coming in and talking a little bit about some of the solutions that we can build on the AWS platform. I'm Dean Samuels, your host, joined with my other host, Jared Spiegel.
Again, voice is still holding up. So
still holding up. I can hear you, so it sounds okay. And we have a special guest today, very special.
Hey, thank you.
We have Drew from A Cloud Guru.
Yes,
Drew.
thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey. He's obviously brought his support staff here. His entourage, right? Your show entourage.
Yeah. Well, they do all the work. I just take the credit.
Oh, nice. Okay. You're the face of A Cloud Guru.
Oh, please. No. That's not a good. Ryan Kroonenberg is actually the founder of A Cloud Guru.
Right.
He's an AWS community hero.
Right.
So he's the face of it.
Sure.
Yeah. Sam is his brother. He's actually based in Melbourne.
Right. Okay.
And runs our development team.
Yep.
So we have a lot of folks out here watching from Melbourne on our development team as well.
Awesome.
So shout out to our development team. Get back to work,
Shout
fellas.
out. Peace.
You know what I'm saying? You know.
And then you actually mentioned something there about community heroes. So you're a community hero as well. I don't see your cape though. So can you explain what a community hero is?
I have these different superpowers.
Right.
I can't really go into it right now. I have to kill you.
Right.
So I actually worked at Capital One for quite some time. I spent most of my career at Capital One, and when I was there towards the end of my career at Capital One, the last several years, we drove cloud adoption, pretty massive scale cloud adoption. So I was director of engineering and operations. And it was a really fantastic time. I got to meet folks like Adrian Cockcroft and work with Stephen Orban, head of enterprise strategy. And one of the things that we ran into as we got from 3 applications to 30 to 300, right, was really scaling that, right? And really became a big issue. It wasn't the technology. It was how do you get an infantry of individuals that really can, move from WTF to AWS, right? From a knowledge base, right?
I like that, yeah.
So I actually measured our architectural KPIs and cost and adoption. I have a patent on that. But then I correlated it with training. And what I ended up coming and using was A Cloud Guru, and started driving towards critical mass. There's this pivot point of 10% of mass fluency. So we ended up driving, right now within the United States, a full 2% of all certified developers actually work at Capital One.
Right.
But more importantly, their KPIs and adoption has really hockey sticked. So so as part of that, I got a chance to meet Werner, and I got knighted, at the court of the AWS Community Heroes. But I also ended up using a lot of my focus was outcome-based training. Like, how do you get engineers that are used to doing or developers or operations that were used to maybe working with change orders and a lot of levels of abstraction.
Yeah, because you want to ensure that when you're actually putting through someone through training and actually going through, you want to see that there's an outcome at the end of it. You want to see that you're either getting certified or even having an impact on businesses and actually using those skills and putting them to practice.
100%. And the nice part about the certification, while it's a little bit of a vanity metric, I was able to correlate once we started getting critical mass, that the adoption was going up, right? Because if everybody's certified in your organization, things are going to be a lot easier. But I used Alexa as a mechanism to. We love craft projects as kids, so as an adult, you can go ahead and say, well, let's build, a website on S3, or let's build an Alexa skill.
Sure.
So we started using that, and also introduced everybody to serverless.
Which was cool. You mentioned about Capital One and also Alexa there, and Capital One's doing some really cool stuff with Alexa skills and the Amazon Echo. Can you maybe explain? Your topic is around Alexa being the gateway to serverless. So what do we mean by that? Maybe talk about what is Alexa, what's the difference between Alexa and Amazon Echo, and how is it the gateway to serverless?
So the Echoes themselves are more like the devices, like almost like the Kindle, right? So they're what you would find on the Amazon store. So that's what the music comes out of. But really everything happens in the cloud, right? So within the cloud, there's the Alexa services that basically is the response to when you invoke something from Alexa, when you ask it to say, Alexa, ask A Cloud Guru what's new, right? Then it invokes a Lambda function, and then it will go pull from our S3 bucket the latest updates on AWS and deliver them to your Echo device. So there's a lot of different Echo devices out there. But Alexa itself is the voice service. And then how do you invoke that voice service that runs with AWS? Lambda is a great mechanism to do that. So functions invoke that. It scales, and it's fantastic.
So one of the questions that I asked of our audience one of the speakers yesterday was, how do I get started with Lambda? And Racer, who was on stage at that stage, said, we've got AWS training, but there's also some really good courses that are available at Cloud Guru. Now, I understand that your daughter's even been able to get and trained up and been able to create some of these skills in Alexa. The Alexa
so that's a little bit of a challenge, right? If my daughter can do it, and at the time she was a freshman in high school, right? Then I would challenge all the developers out there, get off your ass and build a function and get a Alexa skill published. Plus, more importantly, you get a free T-shirt when you publish your skill, right?
And it's all about the T-shirt.
It's all about the T-shirt and potentially some money. So the whole point of cloud to me, right, is frictionless innovation. Like you want to remove the undifferentiated heavy lifting and focus on product innovation, right? So Alexa really is a great example of that. So my daughter had a idea to build a Harry Potter skill. So she had one that was like a sorting ceremony and a quiz. So I sat down with her, and she was the product manager and helped to design it, right? And within 24 hours, we were able to get her idea out to millions of people.
Sounds good, because I mean, my kids love Harry Potter, so I might have to look up this skill.
Yeah, so the sorting ceremony, it'll put you in the different houses, ask you questions. Do you like the babbling brook or the sound of a fire? And it puts you in a different house.
Awesome.
Well, the interesting thing was she got so many users from that. She ended up earning over time about $8,000.
Jeez.
Wow.
And so not only did she fund her a trip to Paris and London with a school trip, but then she bought 2 shares of Amazon stock with it as well.
If I was that age, I wouldn't know what to do with $8,000.
So I may have transferred a little bit into my funds, but don't tell her that. I think she's sleeping now back in the States, so hopefully.
It's a bit of a family tax.
Exactly. There you go. I like that. Yes, exactly.
So we've got a question here from one of our close followers. Another question from Cloudy McCloudface. Hello to Cloudy McCloudface. Cloudy McCloudface asks, what is the difference between Amazon Lex and Amazon Alexa?
So Lexa is where you're doing the translation, right, from voice to or from text to voice, right? So Alexa is the software development skills kit, right, that you'd use it. So interestingly enough, one of the things that they came out with recently was Lex and Poly, right? So the minute that if you go look at AWS Connect, that's amazing to see what AWS is starting to use with these voice services, right?
Like contact center.
Contact centers, right? And that's really, while I love Alexa, I do love Alexa, and I have to say that because robots are going to take over the world, and I want to be nice to Alexa.
You want to be on the good side.
I want to be on the good side. At some point, right, the whole purpose of you take Lambda, you put it in Alexa, you commoditize it, you start getting a bunch of people to use it, you get thousands and thousands of developer hardening Lambda and the voice service. Well, what you eventually want to do with that is, instead of putting data centers out of their misery, right, like call centers are miserable. Right? Call service should be good, but we want to be able to harden those voices and the voice services and the machine learning and the machine language through the Alexa development, and then start moving that up into AWS Connect. So we can have a much richer experience within enterprises, leveraging those voice services and removing the friction between a crappy, hit 1, 2, 3, 4 to go nowhere. So now we have a really good experience because we've removed all of the friction between how you want to design the experience and the Lex and Poly services in AWS Connect.
You mentioned the E word there, enterprise, music to my ears there, and helping out enterprises.
Well, I think Capital One is doing some really amazing things actually in that space as well.
And you mentioned about the Amazon Connect, Amazon Lex, Amazon Alexa, Poly. We actually had a session yesterday from one of our colleagues, Dina T. Dina T spoke about integration of Amazon Connect with Lex and Poly, and actually building these contact centers. And
you okay?
But maybe we'll talk more on the Alexa side. Alexa skills. Can you maybe take us through some of the very interesting skills that you've come across that's been developed, maybe just for fun, and also to address business needs?
So my friend Taryn, he calls my skills the I don't know if you ever, in the 80s there was the Spencer's store, and it was just chock full of a bunch of crap.
Right.
So those are my skills. They're just sort of like fun, skills, like souvenir skills.
You mentioned yesterday you actually built a skill on the flight.
I built a skill on a flight. I just do it for fun. And the whole idea is you have an idea. You can fail fast and let the users determine how much it sucks or whether it works or not.
Sure.
So I built one on the flight that just for my mates here in Australia. That's called Boomerang.
Right.
He's a Alexa launch Boomerang. and it says Aussie, 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 oi, 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 and it has a sound, and it has the sound of a boomerang that goes and it comes back, and then you say Rippa to let it fly again. So hopefully nobody in Aussies are offended by it.
A plane?
It was like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Did you use Sam as well? I was just referring back to yesterday's talk that Gerardo came on stage and was talking about how you could actually build things from economy seat 24A.
You could do some really cool stuff, with that. And so I just have a bunch of stuff like that. One like tag, you're it, and then Alexa tags you back. And then I put it on social media. I said, see if your kids can beat Alexa at a game of tag. And I ended up earning $800 because all the kids were trying to beat Alexa.
Keep the kids entertained for hours.
Exactly. But there's some really good stuff. Another Alexa champion, Nick Schwab, he built all the ambient sounds, like the background sounds, like waterfall, right? It's like invoked apps. He probably has earned 6 figures on developer incentives, and he's at 1.5 million functions that are invoked every day or monthly with him, right? 1.5 million, and his cost is like 20 bucks.
Well, there you go.
So I've got a question here actually from the audience, and I don't know if you can see the text. It's rather written, but it's written that it says, "Hi, I'm an 11-year-old. I code in Python." Well done. How do I build Alexa skills?
So there's a couple of great, obviously acloud.guru has some great training on there. Some really good resource. If you go to github.com/Alexa, they have some really a great training out there as well. They can kind of walk you through some skills using Python or Node.js as well. So the easiest way to go about and do that is if you have a Alexa, developer.amazon.com, you go there, you basically create an account, right? Pretty straightforward. Then you basically click on create skill. I know it's getting pretty difficult here, right?
I'm still following.
And it pretty much walks you through the template for go ahead and creating the skill. You're going to go ahead and do a few things like you give it an invocation name. So for Boomerang, right? Bloody Boomerang is the way you invoke the skill. So you would type that in, right? Then you can have things like intents and slots. So if you want to say, Bloody Boomerang, do it for 2 minutes. So that could be one of my intents or my slots, right? So it's a very easy visual interface to go in and to start building that. And then you would add a little icon for the store and all that stuff, right? And the description. Well, then what you do is simply say, well, when I say Bloody Boomerang, what do you want, what happens? What's the logic? So that's when you create an AWS .Amazon account. You go in and you create function. And interestingly enough, they have templates or blueprints. And if you click on create function and blueprint, it'll say use a Alexa template, like a fact skill. And it'll go ahead and build it. And all you have to do then is basically connect the Amazon ID of your skill with the Amazon resource name of your Lambda function, and you connect the two together.
Right, and that's pretty cool because it leverages Lambda in the back end. Then you have that capability to develop your back end in many different languages. So whether you're the 11-year-old that does Python or Elgin's grandma from yesterday that does .NET, it wouldn't matter. You have that familiar. You're familiar with the language.
Are you saying .NET's a little legacy or something? You throwing shade on .NET?
That's what I'm insinuating.
Okay, all right. Well, and the really cool thing is so there's functions as a service, right, with Lambda. But really, when you look at serverless patterns, right, so ACloud Guru is completely serverless. Like our EC2 console is empty. But we deliver courses to 500,000 customers, 160 countries, 0 servers, right?
Actually, I even recall reading a blog post by, I think Peter Sparsky's over there. You built a transcoding engine completely serverless, and that actually does the transcoding of all of your videos. Yeah,
it's some really cool stuff that you can do. But the neat thing about it, right, and Tim Wagner and others talk about, Lambda is really the glue between the Lego blocks of AWS, right? So the fact that you can now say, for instance, with a Alexa skill, my Boomerang skill, right? I can say, well, I could make a monolithic Lambda function that has all of my information in there, or I can take the audio file and I could put it in an S3 bucket. Right? Oh, and then I could say, well, I want to find out how far you threw it, and I'm going to go ahead and create a leaderboard in DynamoDB.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, now I'm going to take that information and create a static S3 website, and now the real fun starts happening, because now you're starting to use all these different services to create your product, but there's hardly any friction there.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the real cool thing, where these developers and this young 11-year-old is smart enough to extrapolate. Like, they could start off building a stupid skill like mine. But then
you can start small.
But they're a hell of a lot smarter. Like, that's I'm limited. Like, my stupid skills is as far as I can go. But these other folks, like that once they get it, they have the capability to go ahead and say, oh man, I can go ahead and and they're going to be somebody out there is going to be the individual that puts a function on a marketplace, and they're going to have. It's going to be the most used function, and they're going to be the first person to make $1 billion off of a function, because that's where things are going. And being a developer of functions that everybody can start using, get started with Alexa. Alexa's the gateway drug to serverless, right? Let's get going.
I mean, I wish I had this when I was a kid. I can remember trying to build games and even trying to start small. It was very difficult.
Very difficult. Yeah, and you're
being able to do functions.
Did you have a TRS-80 or a Commodore 64?
I had an Apple IIe, actually, back in the old days.
Oh, man, that's old school.
I even had an 80-column line card in that thing. It was awesome. But but back then it was really difficult to start small. You sort of had to be, I mean, that said, we have a leadership principle here of think big, but I wasn't expecting to adhere to Amazon leadership principles as a 10-year-old. But being able to start small and function-level computing is a great way to actually start getting people started. And one of the things that they talked about at the Executive Summit,
at the Enterprise Executive Summit, was the whole idea of not being afraid to fail and to fail fast. Well, normally these enterprises are so used to not failing because it's so costly. But now with the idea of functions and this Alexa skill, well, so I put my skill out there and I might get 3 users. Well, who gives a shit? Right, I failed fast, and it was cheap, and I experimented, and now I can sort of go and back and look at my, what was the feedback, and I can actually go look at invocations, retention, who's using what, and then go back in and iterate, and I could do that before I'm actually spending really any money. It's just my time. And so I think that these new developers, like this young 11-year-old, aren't going to be afraid of that. They're actually going to embrace that.
And also, new developers, new accounts. Again, I'll highlight again, free tier. Lambda is covered by free tier.
1 million invocations
every month.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, A Cloud Guru didn't even get a cost on functions until what, the first 10 months? Something, that's called being a startup and being able to focus on, we want to focus on delivering our content to our customers, right?
You don't want to focus on running infrastructure, building out these things. Again, remove that undifferentiated heavy lifting.
Nobody gives a shit about your data center, right? Nobody cares about your DevOps pipeline. They're all important. But the bottom line is what people care about is product innovation and what you're delivering to them. And the quicker you can get that to them and iterate and listen to them and close that and tighten that feedback loop, that's what you should be focused on.
Exactly. It's all about that experimentation and limiting that cost of failure, right? And do expect to fail. I mean, that's the whole idea with experimentation. It's not an experiment if you know it's going to succeed.
And by the way, speaking of failure, for my bloody Boomerang, I have 2 unique users, and I both forced them to use that. And I think the other one is because I enabled it in the giant Echo over here. So hey, everybody that's out there, enable the Boomerang and help earn some money.
There you go. You got the free T-shirt though, right?
I got the free T-shirt. That's coming in, but you really go after the developer incentives. You can get some a few $100 there. So it's good.
So we've got another question from the audience here, and sorry, I'm just throwing these balls back so we can keep getting questions. This is from Jesus. What's the newest, coolest Alexa skill that you've recently tried?
Everybody, I do get asked what my favorite Alexa skill is, and my response is Amazon Connect. Only because I love. Simon Worley is somebody that folks should take a look at. I know AWS actually use that for their value chain mapping, and he talks a lot about moving up the value chain and taking new ideas that you pioneer, how do you scale them, commoditize them, and move up the value chain. And so when I look at Alexa, it's really just the queen of the chessboard. But the goal is to move it up and leverage that for higher order systems like AWS Connect. Just like when you start out with S3, how many developers did you all incentivize to build static websites that gave them free t-shirts?
Yeah.
Well, you're hardening the service to end up moving it up the stack where now it's enterprise, ready, right? And you can now come up with these new services. So AWS Connect, I get a demo of that over there. I think we're going to come up with we have this thing called release review where we look at SageMaker and new things that are rolled out.
Right.
And we kind of say, use it or lose it. Is it ready yet? All of them have been used it so far, so it's good. But we're going to do one on AWS Connect because it's amazing what you can spin up a call center in like 10 minutes.
10 minutes, exactly. And you can have local dial-in numbers for it, and
That's crazy. But there are some cool ones. Of course, I think that mine are probably the best. My friend Taryn Peterson is also Alexa champion. He has some great ones. He does like games with like football and baseball and things. So we're just constantly experimenting.
So if I was an end user and wanted to get started with developing Alexa skill, what's the typical journey that one would go through to actually go and become, sorry, I've gone blank on the term, but the Alexa champion?
Well, Alexa champion.
How do you actually be bestowed with that title?
That's a good question. It cost me. It cost me a lot. It cost me a lot of money, basically. You just a lot of that has to do more with your community and your evangelism and supporting, the development efforts, like contributing back.
Yep.
It's not like any of that it's like, well, my skills were used or I'm getting dollars for it. It's just that you're trying to help.
Sure, it's like building the community, helping develop the community.
If I wanted to get started and actually start becoming a little bit more vocal in the community, what types of events are there to actually be able to find out, learn from more people, and actually provide me a soapbox to actually stand on?
So there's an Alexa Slack channel that's out there that's pretty easy to find. The first thing is build a skill, get it out there. Get on Amazon.com. I mean, you're on Amazon.com. How cool is that, right? You're on the marketplace, and people could 5-star you, or I got plenty of 1-star reviews out there. I have one that's called Simon Says, and it actually launches Simon Wardley's thoughts, quotes, and all these kids are like, "This sucks. It's not Simon Says." And I'm like, "Well, you're learning business, so that's a good start." But that's the first place to kind of go. Then the AWS summits are a great opportunity to come in and talk to the evangelist folks like Jeff Blankenberg from AWS and all these different evangelists that are out there on Twitter. A huge community of folks that are out there.
And I guess this is also, even those who can't make it to Sydney Summit, there's other opportunities. We've got the Dev Days coming up in August. So if you're in Melbourne or Brisbane, come along to those events and talk to us.
Talk
to the people that we'll have at the stands. Talk to the developers, and let's build.
Plenty of people to
that's
talk
the thing.
around town.
Your whole talk now about or your focus on build on.
Yeah.
I mean, get your hands on the keyboard and build something.
Yeah, and it's function scale. It's you don't have to write reams and reams and reams.
So I've got probably the most important question.
Okay. All right.
So this is from Sarah, customer at Expo. Is Sarah around? Who's Sarah? Oh, there's Sarah. Catch the ball, Sarah. Sarah asks, if a skill is free to use, how did your daughter make money from it?
So there's a couple of things. That's a great question. So one is Amazon is incentivizing developers in a couple of ways, because they want as many developers to be building skills to basically start hardening the service. The Lambda functions and trying to learn from the community, right? So basically, you're giving your time up for free to help to move the service up the stack and get better. So the way they do that is they'll say, "Hey, I'll give you a free shirt." All right, that got me. Right. Sure. The other thing is if you get over 100 users, or sometimes like they're now upping the unique users in a month, they'll actually send you a free dot. Or a free spot.
That allows you to actually then do
testing. And you can actually test it right now. There's a thing called echosim.io. So you don't even need an Alexa to do that, right? But then what happens is they have a pool of money across several categories, and then they start to allocate dollars to the top invocations and users, and that's how the top number one person gets $5,000, and then it starts kind of going down. Where my daughter ends up every month getting $700 or $800 between the UK and US, and then so over time it kind of added up, right? So you can do that. The other thing that they're going to start rolling out pretty soon is subscription. You'll be able to actually start to purchase. They're just betaing that now, right? Where you could go ahead and are you hurting people over there?
Got to make sure they're awake.
Yeah. So the ambulance is coming, I think it's over here. So you can subscribe and pay for skills.
Awesome.
Right, so they're going to start to do a little bit more of that.
Sure.
Right,
And
so that's ultimately where ties right into the
that's
marketplace.
also going to have a lot of marketplaces. It's going to have a lot of commercial uses. We can actually do restricted content potentially, paid for content through, and allowing the monetization of the publication.
Yeah, so like imagine my skill, right? Imagine if I did the Alexa Boomerang. Right, I say, Alexa, bloody boomerang, it whips it around and whatever. That says, hey, do you want to throw it again, or would you like to buy a boomerang from our store?
Yeah.
Oh, I want to buy a boomerang. Okay, what color? Boom, okay, now you go to the Amazon Pay, it's shipped out, it's good, right? So,
I'm just thinking about a scenario here as well. And for those who aren't at the event, I did a presentation on the future of television yesterday afternoon. I was lucky to co-speak with Clive Dickens, the Chief Digital Officer from Channel 7, and they were talking specifically about how they are using Alexa to be able to provide voice controls to their 7 Plus application. And so specifically, we could potentially extend that if that became a premium subscription service, for example. They could, you could then also perhaps order content or actually get access to that content as a subscriber, as opposed to
the world of possibilities are wide open. And they just rolled out Alexa for Business, so it's going to become a lot more integrated. And as Amazon does, they're going to experiment, see what works. Pivot or persevere.
Also, you mentioned Alexa for Business there. Actually, that's something that's recently came out. It was announced at re:Invent last year.
Again, Amazon moving up the stack, right?
Correct.
And that's the whole idea. Is like you build it, you scale it, you commoditize it, and then you start moving up and building higher level services. Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
And so in terms of looking forward, I know it's hard to predict the future, but where do you see Alexa heading? Obviously, we've got some really cool skills now. Are they going to be able to protect us from the robot overlords in the future, or where do you see it heading?
We actually, so A-Cloud Guru has a pretty good series right now called The Future of Tech.
Right.
So that's a good place. That's probably something we probably should take a look at, the future of voice there. There's a lot of, it's so early, but one of the things that's so fascinating to me about voice, right? It's like, remember when the screens came out and the iPhones, right? Everybody that was using them was kind of like, wow, this is sort of awkward. But then the teenagers came along, and there was,
I still remember my old Palm Pilot. And
the Palm Pilot, exactly.
The graffiti.
I think I'll stick with my BlackBerry, right? I'm more comfortable with that. And then the teenagers came out, and it was like natural to them, like swiping left, snap.
Well, they're digital natives.
When Snapchat came out, I was like, what the is this? Like, I got to screen, what the, excuse me, but, like, now I kind of figured it out. It took me a while.
Right.
Well, voice, like, there's some people just hate voice, right? Well, I've had several people that their youngest kids, first word is Alexa. They use it all the time because it's a natural thing.
It's natural. It comes naturally.
Right? So they walk in and they're like, "Oh, Alexa." The kids walk in from outside playing and they ask, what time it is. Set the alarm.
And again, you're reminding me of something I heard at one of the keynotes at re:Invent last year, where specifically we're using. An organisation is using Alexa and Echo devices in rural African farming communities to be able to interface and get information information about how much fertilizer they should be using, because they don't know how to interface with a computer via an unnatural means, via keyboard. Having that natural voice and natural language understanding model to be able to get that information means you don't have to have experience with using a computer. You can just talk to an AI platform and actually get the information that you require.
It's amazing that they've got the ubiquitous internet in those rural parts of Africa too, right?
But it also means that when they actually come to actually purchase their fertilizer and their supplies, they can actually access a kiosk, and we only need to supply internet to that particular location.
See, here you are talking about saving the world, and I'm like throwing freaking boomerangs. Right now, I feel guilty that I didn't have a little bit
big, unfortunately.
Well, I have a skill out there I did for a charity actually called Speak Up. You say Alexa, speak up, and it's for Cameron K. Gallagher Foundation for teenage depression. And what it does is it actually gives you a moment of mindfulness every day. A friend of mine, Forrest Raziel from Trek 10, he's actually a professional voiceover artist in addition to doing our Fast and Furious cartoons. And he recorded these great moments of mindfulness to center yourself, but it also raises awareness for their foundation. Right. So eventually you'll be able to say, let's submit a donation, right? You can do a whole bunch of different things through the skill by creating awareness and getting it out there to potentially millions of people. Right, versus
Awesome. So speaking of Alexa skills, specific Alexa skills, we do have a question. This is from the wonderful Kim from marketing. This is actually a football question. That's otherwise known as soccer.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So, if you were to ask Alexa who is better, Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo, who do you think she would pick?
I think Messi's probably more handsome, to be honest with you. So yeah, I think
Messi.
Yeah, I'm just going just based on purely on looks because I'm
right.
Yeah, well, whatever. Because I really, when you say football, I'm thinking, who's a better quarterback, and
No, Australian rules.
But I did really enjoy watching cricket, surfing, and the Commonwealth Games, where all of the British colonies compete for Britain's favor. That was awesome TV the other day.
Australia's winning all the gold medals.
Exactly.
It's the only time we can do that, right? So.
That's awesome.
Awesome. So, just in terms of closing up, what you'd like to say to the audience in terms of how to get started, in terms of the future direction, about any tips and tricks.
I think the most important thing that everybody needs to do is first get a membership to acloud.guru. I think that's probably the. No, I'm just kidding. I kid, not really.
Training's important, right?
Yeah, look, training is important. It's our whole goal is to get people out there and start building stuff, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of mechanisms to it. The certification process is a great way because it provides you some validation for those basic skills. But I always say when you get certified on AWS, you're an expert because now you know how much you don't know. But you're no longer a hazard to your organization because you have you realize now the unknowns are now known, and the 1,500 changes every year, you could start to absorb those in a much better context. But that ends up being a gateway to, once you get exposed to S3 and Dynamo and Lambda and all these, then start building stuff. Right? Use the IoT device, use Alexa, build an S3 website, get your hands dirty.
It's one thing to be trained, but it's another thing to be able to put those skills and put what you've learned into practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where
and practice makes perfect with these types of things.
Exactly. And we have maker labs and stuff because we find that to be very important, right? It's like build a website for your school team, right? Build a resume website using S3, build an Alexa, and just for fun, because I still like craft projects. I build an Alexa skill. I still text my dad and my mom. I'm like, hey, can you give me 5 stars over here? My dad's like, I don't really like this one. I'm like, Dad, really?
But if your family can't be honest with you, who can?
That's true.
But then also there are things that AWS can provide here as well, and we've got the AWS training portal there, which will give you, at that portal you can get up over 100 free short courses that you can take, and there are courses on things like Alexa skill development as well as Lambda development.
GitHub/Alexa is really
They've got a lot of samples, and
that's a great place. GitHub/Alexa is a great place to get started.
And if Python is your thing and you want to know something more specific about coding in a specific language, then there are other resources such as ACloud Guru to be able to help with that.
Yeah, we love helping out. So I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you all today.
No problem.
I'm going to be at Yow Night over at the Hard Rock Cafe, and I think Kim has an open tab for us. Are you going to be there?
We'll try to be.
Okay, because she said that she would go ahead and everybody open tab on Kim.
And that's if I can get away from this desk at the moment.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit later. So.
I have to know though, on your flight back home, what skill are you going to look at developing? I know you probably don't want to give your secrets away, but any insights?
I'm actually working on some case studies. We're doing some really cool work at ACloud Guru. We have a pilot program with Notre Dame. They're actually using our training to educate some students.
Fighting Irish.
Yeah, Fighting Irish. There you go. Yes. So there's doing some really cool work with that. Some large companies, also some. We just got we're an advanced tier partner, but we're also part of the public sector program. Yep. We do a lot of work with We Power Tech and Women Who Code. Yep. So really just trying to amplify some of the work that they're doing and share that with others to help inspire them, especially out here in Australia. It's so important, right? The enterprises really need to start to get moving. And so we want to go ahead and provide them some of the methodologies and the frameworks to help to get them going. So I'm going to really try to focus on my AWS Community Hero aspect on the way back, and my Alexa was on the way here. So
all those multiple hats we've got to wear, right?
Sure, it's all fun.
We've got James, one of our guys, brought up a couple of Echo devices here. So if you've not seen an Echo device, we've got an Echo Plus here and the standard Echo. There is a smaller version which we don't have on stage. The
Was
Echo
this mine?
Dot.
I could take this with me. That's all. Thank you very much. I'll see you all.
Oh, the giveaway. There you go.
That was my giveaway, right? That's your swag for.
Well, Drew, it was a pleasure having you on. You're very informative.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Actually, just before you go, let's quickly get the Cloud Guru team. Just pop up on stage quickly and say hi.
There we go. Let's go. There's my mates here. They're awesome. Got Julian and Rob and Peter.
So thanks, guys, and thanks for being a sponsor of this event as well.
Yeah.
And
thanks, and we'll be back shortly in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.